Hi, kids. It's been a while. I know that. The light's a bit. Let me. I know it's been about a couple of weeks since I did this story time. See, Tia Jess needed to regroup herself, and she has a lot of irons in the fire, but she's back. Now she can figure out what we're all going to read. And yes, I'm wearing the same dress as last time because I love it and it's still clean. All right. Today we're going to read from a old textbook I grew up reading. This has many stories. I might even read from different books with different stories. Today's story is How My Parents Learned to Eat. It's written by Ina Friedman and illustrated by Alan Say, who is super talented. Let's start. This is our main character. This is the girl who's telling us a story. She's telling a story about her parents. Pay attention to the tablecloth and the different food and dishes and cookware. This is going to become very important. Also pay attention to her kimono. Very pretty, I believe. Here's what it says. In our house, some days we eat with chopsticks and some days we eat with knives and forks. For me, it's natural. When my mother met my father, she was a Japanese schoolgirl and he was an American sailor. His ship was stationed in Yokohama. Every day, my father, whose name is John, walked in the park with my mother, Aiko. They sat on a bench and talked, but my father was afraid to invite my mother to dinner. Meet the parents. I wonder how young she was. Wonder when the age gap is. If we go to a restaurant, he thought, I'll go hungry because I don't know how to eat with chopsticks. And if I go hungry, I'll act like a bear. Then Aiko won't like me. I better not ask her to dinner. My mother wondered why my father never invited her to dinner. Perhaps John is afraid I don't know how to eat with a knife and fork. And I'll look silly, she thought. Maybe it is best if he doesn't invite me to dinner. So they walked and talked and never ate a bowl of rice or a piece of bread together. Wonder if there's any street food options. Makes me nostalgic for when we were able to go out in areas with lots of people, not have to worry about getting too close. Makes me nostalgic. One day, the captain of my father's ship said, John, in 3 weeks a ship is leaving Japan. My father was sad. He wanted to marry my mother. How can I ask her to marry me? He thought, I don't even know if we like the same food. And if we don't, we'll go hungry. It's hard to be happy if you're hungry. I'll have to find out what food she likes. And I'll have to learn to eat with chopsticks. So he went to a Japanese restaurant. Everyone sat on cushions around low tables. My father bowed to the waiter. Please teach me to eat with chopsticks. Oh, this looks good. I've seen some Japanese restaurants where they eat around low tables. I would like to eat at a low table someday myself. Of course, said the waiter, bowing. Bowing is a greeting, kind of like how we used to shake hands. or give high fives. The waiter brought a bowl of rice and a plate of sukiyaki. Sukiyaki is made of small pieces of meat, vegetables, and tofu. It smelled good. My father wanted to gobble it up. Who wants the sukiyaki? The waiter placed 2 chopsticks between my father's fingers. Hold the bottom chopstick still. Move the top one to pick up the food, the waiter said. My father tried, but the meat slipped off his chopstick and fell on his lap. The waiter came back with a bowl of soup. How can I eat soup with chopsticks? My father thought. Look at this sukiyaki. Oh my goodness, isn't it delicious? I want. Drink, said the waiter. Drink from the bowl. Thank goodness, my father said. After the soup, my father felt better. He picked up the chopsticks. Finally, my father put one piece of meat in his mouth. Delicious. More soup, please, he said. After 3 bowls of soup, my father felt much better. Then he practiced some more with his chopsticks. Soon there was more sukiyaki in his belly than on the floor. But it was too late to call my mother. He had to run back to his ship. That night, my mother was sad. Every other day, my father had come to see her. That day, he did not come. He did not call on the telephone. Perhaps he was tired of walking and talking. Perhaps he was ashamed of her because she did not know how to eat with a knife and fork. Perhaps his ship had sailed away. All night, she could not sleep. And all night, my father sat on his bunk pretending to pick up sukiyaki. The next morning, my father called my mother. Please, will you eat dinner with me tonight? Yes, my mother shouted into the phone. First she was happy. Then she was afraid. She took her school books and ran to the house of great uncle. Great uncle. They appear very close, don't they? Close relationship. Great uncle had visited England. He had seen the British Museum. He had eaten dinners with Englishmen. My mother knocked at the door. Great uncle opened it. Why are you so sad, child? He asked. Because I must learn to eat with a knife and fork by 7 o'clock tonight. Great uncle nodded. Foreign ways are quite strange. Why do you want to eat with a knife and fork? My mother blushed. Is it the American sailor? Great uncle asked. I see. Here, take this note to your teacher. At lunchtime, I will come and take you to a foreign restaurant. By 7 o'clock tonight, you will eat with a knife and fork. I want to stop and say it's very important you let your parents, your guardians, your aunts and uncles, some adult who is close to you know who you hang out with, okay? It's very important because we want to know if you're safe. We want to know if the person you hang out with is trustworthy. I had to fix my hair, but we want you to be safe in general. Please stay safe. My mother picked up her school bag and bowed. No, great uncle stuck out his hand. In the West, you shake hands. This wasn't the before time. Oh, look at this restaurant. To sit down in a restaurant, either a Japanese or a Western style restaurant. I miss that. The restaurant had red carpets and many lights. Great uncle pulled out a chair for my mother. In the West, men help ladies into chairs. This can be tough when it comes to weight and strength. My mother looked at the small fork and the large fork on the left. She looked at the knife, little spoon, and big spoon on the right. Her head grew dizzy. Different utensils for different foods, great uncle said. How strange to dirty so many things, said my mother. A chopstick is a chopstick. I can eat everything with 2 chopsticks. When the waiter brought the soup, great uncle pointed the large spoon. Dip it slowly, bring it to your mouth, sip quietly. My mother's hand trembled. The soup spilled onto the white cloth. You'll learn, great uncle encouraged her. When my mother was finished with the soup, the waiter brought her a plate of mashed potatoes, roast beef, and peas. This is the way Westerners eat. Well, not all, great uncle said. With the knife and fork, they cut the meat. Then they hold the fork upside down in their left hand, like birds. They build a nest of mashed potatoes. They put the peas in the nest with the plate. Then they slip the nest into their mouth. Try it. The mashed potatoes were not difficult, but the peas rolled all over the plate. Impossible, said my mother. I'll never learn by 7 o'clock tonight. You can learn anything, great uncle said. Try again. More mashed potatoes and peas, please, he said to the waiter. At 7 o'clock, my father came to see my mother. Why didn't you wear your kimono? He asked. We are going to a Japanese restaurant. A Japanese restaurant? Don't you think I know how to eat Western food? My mother asked. Of course. Don't you think I know how to eat Japanese food? Of course. Then tonight we'll eat meat and potatoes. Tomorrow night we'll eat sukiyaki. Tomorrow night I will wear my kimono, said my mother. My mother said. She started to bow. Then she stopped and put out her hand. My father shook it. Look at that coat and that purse. My father ordered 2 plates of mashed potatoes, roast beef, and peas. He watched my mother cut the meat into pieces. He stared when she turned over her fork and made a bird's nest. He was amazed. You're very clever with a knife and fork, he said. Thank you, said my mother. You must teach me. My father said, that's a new way of eating peas. Teach you? Yes, Americans don't eat that way. He slid his fork under some peas and put them in his mouth. My mother stared at him. But great uncle taught me. He lived in England. He knows the ways of the West. My father began to laugh. He taught you to eat like an Englishman. Americans eat differently. Look at the dinner. Wonder how long ago this was. Oh dear, my mother said. A chopstick is a chopstick. Everyone uses them in the same way. Yes, when we are married, we'll eat only with chopsticks. He took her hand. Married? If I marry you, I want to eat like an American. I'll teach you to eat with a knife and fork, and you teach me to use chopsticks. My mother shook my father's hand. My father bowed. Little girl. Oh, see how much has changed? That's why at our house, some days we eat with chopsticks and some days we eat with knives and forks. Now, I know in some Japanese schools they have knife and fork days and they also have chopstick days. Would be nice to know what's going on. Here's a little magazine that might be dated, but I think it's still. It's something from. Here's a section that focuses on Japan. Look at all that. Look, a bento box. I think some of you kids know what a bento box is. Lunch for Japanese kids isn't in the bag, it's in the obento. And the lunch has cold rice with sesame seeds, fried goodies, vegetable salad, and fresh fruit. And yep, down there it's a sushi. There's avocado, rice, and fish eggs, also known as caviar. All right. Younger kids in Japan eat from trays at their classroom desks. Lunch is prepared in the school kitchen. 3 days a week are rice days, and the other 2 are bread days. On rice days, kids use chopsticks and eat traditional Japanese foods, such as miso soup, which is made from soybean paste, Fish and rice. On bread days, they use a knife and fork and eat Western foods like chicken, pork, and loaves of bread. Japanese kids drink milk, no matter what day it is. Ko Sugiyama, age 10, from Saitama, Japan, loves fried potato balls. First, you scoop the potato out of the skin, then you mash it, roll it back up in the skin, and deep fry it until it's crisp. Explains, I like mine with spicy black sauce. High school kids almost always bring their own lunch. The lunch is packed in a lunchbox called an obento. An obento has separate compartments for chopsticks in each dish. Older kids might pack cold rice, vegetable salad, and sushi. What's sushi? Raw fish. Well, hope you guys enjoyed this time with me. And remember, stay safe. Bye.